Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Folks, I do this every week when I say there he is, but there he is, Parker Hesse, former Iowa Hawkeye defensive end, great current NFL tight end with the Atlanta Falcons. Parker, great seeing you. How you doing?
Good to see you, Dave. Good to be back.
Oh, great to have you back. Parker and I are going to talk today about a bunch of things. Parker's kind enough to join us for the whole show and in studio. Just got back from OTAs, organized team activities in the NFL, mandatory, by the way. So he was there. We're going to talk about that. And in his opening segment, Parker and I are going to talk about a great function he's going to be a part of again with our buddy Jake Gervais, who Parker brought him on last year with us. And it's the Rally for Reid Foundation football camp, and they raise great funds. And folks, as you know, anything to do with Fight with Flash Foundation for us, or Tater Tough, or Rally for Reid, and I've spoken to Mr. and Mrs. Gleason in the past, not on this show, but anything we can do with kids and fighting cancer or fighting cancer in general, we're a big part of. So very happy to have Parker here with us today. But Parker, since you've been back, you've been busy. You and Mariah and your little girl Hadley got to celebrate Father's Day. You've been to the farmer's market. I know in the off season you stay here in Iowa City. You got your brother getting married next weekend, so you're going up to Northeast Iowa. Man, I think you mean to go back to football camp so you're not so busy, right?
Yeah, that's definitely how it was. You know, I hadn't seen my family at all in the past 3 weeks. They were back up here, so definitely excited to see them. But yeah, you get back to the house after 2 months. There's a lot of errands to run. My brother's wedding. There's a lot of stuff to do this week, but I could definitely make time for you here. So.
Well, that's very kind of you. And yeah, the honey-do list, not on this show, but in life. Boy, it never, and you're learning that now, so as you're chuckling. But hey, again, great having you here, and thank you so much. So let's talk about Rally for Reid and what Jake Gervais started a handful of years ago with you and other former Hawkeyes. And so let's talk about it a little bit, please, Parker.
Yeah, I mean, the Gleasons were someone that, Jake was family friends with, and unfortunately, Reid was going through his battle with cancer when we were in college. Mm-hmm. So a few times, myself and other players on the team went over with Jake to visit him in the hospital. Got to know the Gleasons, and this is the third year now of their camp in his remembrance. All the proceeds go to pediatric cancer, and they do a really amazing job. The Gleasons, Jake and his family, setting it up. So it's really a treat, something that's easy to work for us. We don't have to go through all the stuff planning it out. They take care of that. But we just show up and we get to have a good time with a bunch of kids. So like I said, not only setting up the weekend for the kids attending the camp, but it's fun for us to all get back together and kind of catch up. We all got busy lives going our separate ways now. But, we can come back and kind of reminisce on the last year and old times. So
yeah, I think that's wonderful for many reasons. Obviously, for the Gleason family and children with pediatric cancer or any type of cancer. And again, we do that with Fight with Flash here in Tater Tough with the AYA program at Stead Family Children's Hospital, University of Iowa. But Parker, the intriguing thing is we talk about a good time with kids. The kids love it, but I can see it in your eyes and your face. And we had Jake on here last year with us, and I was going to jokingly say, man, he wins the Super Bowl and doesn't show up, but he showed up last year after. So let's give him the berries on that one. We'll say you show up and gloat after winning the Super Bowl, but now he can't. But he's been busy with putting this together, and so Parker, again, kind enough to be the spokesperson this year without Jake. But the intriguing thing to that is I think you guys have as good a time than the kids do. Just seeing some of the pictures and the personal testimonials and accounts from you and Jake and some of the other players that I've had on this program, it's got to be a real shot in the arm. All you guys are in the NFL. You come back, you get to exchange either horror stories or glory stories. That's got to be the biggest part of it, isn't it? The camaraderie?
Yeah, that's definitely a huge part of it. Jake started setting up stuff, the day before for us to do, to eat and spend a little time together. But yeah, like I said, the whole weekend has just run so well that it's really easy, really convenient to come back and make it work.
So I got to ask then, and you just bring this to mind right there when I saw the devilish look in your eye. Who's had the best story, or who has the best stories when they come back from their NFL experience? Who have you heard, former Hawkeyes, that you don't have to indict anybody and say what the story was, but who can really sling it? Who has the best stories?
I mean, that's really hard. I mean, honestly, I feel like I enjoy more catching up with my former teammates who no longer play football.
Oh, okay.
Because people who play in the NFL, I mean, sure, they have unique stories that I can laugh at and stuff, but for the most part, they're doing the same stuff that I still do on a daily basis. So for me, and we'll still be in contact, throughout the year. You'll see them, in a meeting, you'll watch them on a clip and say, hey, I saw you, whatever, got knocked down or whatever, nice play, something like that. But sometimes it's harder to stay in contact with the guys who are no longer playing, and just to hear what they're up to and what their lives are like is honestly more entertaining.
So let's talk about this part, and we'll talk about this at the end of the show too when we talk about NIL and the current athletes. There's got to be something in the water, and you folks, you and I have talked about this before. 46 as we record this today, on Tuesday afternoon, and we talk about June 20th. 46 former Hawkeyes in or on NFL rosters, either with contracts, free agency, whatever it is. I said it. Your eyes kind of opened up too. 46. That is amazing. And when you talk about player development at Iowa, and we talked about this last week with Matt Gatens about Fran McCaffrey's player development. Boy, I don't think there's any better example of that than Kirk Ferentz and the staff there. 46, Parker, in years leading up to that, you guys, the Hawkeyes, were in the top 5 of former colleges with former players in the NFL. And then we're talking about this year, I think it was 8th, they were tied with Auburn. And so you think about that, and everybody has, disparages the offense and all this stuff. But my goodness, Parker, is there something in the water at the Hanson Football Complex? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, like we've alluded to before, I mean, it's just the way we develop and the way the expectations we have for players coming in. There's a lot of places, and I didn't know until I've gone to the NFL and talked to other guys about their college experiences where, people aren't expected to do things for themselves. They kind of hold your hand around campus, do whatever it takes to get you out on the field on Saturday. And that's just not how it is here. Like, you're expected to handle your own business in the classroom. You're expected to show up on time, be prepared, be ready to go. And that's something that, those are skills that obviously transfer to the NFL, but, those are skills that make you successful anywhere in life. So, that and, just that we still practice football, right? We still put the pads on. We still hit each other. I know there's a lot of people that are going away from that, but that's still how when you kick off on game day, that's still how it's played. You got to block people, you got to defeat blocks, you got to tackle people and defeat tackles. So
yeah, I remember you talked about that. We were talking about last spring when you were on via Zoom, and you've been here in studio before as well with us. And yeah, we have talked about this before, but it bears repeating with you the way it's laid out for you at Iowa. And you mentioned that you said sometimes spring ball was because you guys are getting after it, and a lot of places don't. And you're like, spring was just sometimes it was tough getting through, and I could just hear it in your voice again now where iron sharpens iron. I guess that's the easiest way to say it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then once you see, guys who, are from where you're from, whether it be in Iowa or anywhere in the Midwest or wherever we recruit from, and, they go through and they get better and better and they have a career, it's a lot easier for you to attain when you say, I've seen this guy do it, I've seen this guy do it. Well, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all laid out. And you and Jake both talked last year about expectation. Like you said, this is the way it is. This is what you're going to do. And you had mentioned, too, when you first got on campus, it's a job. I mean, this is what you're going to do. And you said, too, you wanted to complain and say something to somebody, but everybody else is going through the same thing. And I think that's the other thing. You all go through it together.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's that's just like we talked about before. What kind of forms those bonds is, you want to complain, but then you realize everybody else on the team, they've gone through being a freshman, having classes, study hours, and first lift group every day. So there's it's definitely doable, but there's no one to complain to.
Yeah, I was going to say you've all been there before, but hey, we're going to have more with Parker Hesse. He's going to stay for the whole show, so we've got 2 more segments with him. We're going to talk about, reiterate again about the Rally for Reid camp that he's a part of with Jake Gervais and many other former Hawkeyes in the Davenport area upcoming. So, and from what I gather, it's at capacity, and last year you guys were at beyond capacity, and it's well attended. Year 3 now. Great work. Congratulations again, you and Jake and the rest of the guys. Great work you're doing. But we're also going to talk to Parker about the current state of college athletics. So we're going to talk about his NFL career when we come back, and then also what college athletics is up to right now. So back with more Parker Hesse. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. We'll be back with more in just a few moments.
To have a strong finish, you need an excellent start. It's true on the track and also in the field. That's why Mershman Seeds works tirelessly to deliver cutting-edge technology year after year. Introducing Starting Line, Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, now providing added protection from white mold and sudden death syndrome all season. Ask for Starting Line seed treatment from Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Parker Hesse joining us, former Hawkeye great, current Atlanta Falcon. In the area in the offseason, just got off of OTAs in the NFL, organized team activities, mandatory this one was. And we're going to talk a little bit about, we did earlier, about Parker being involved with the Rally for Reid football camp with Jake Gervais and many of his former Hawkeye teammates, and what great work they're doing there. But it's time to talk NFL football, Parker. But how are you feeling right now? You were starting tight end last year. Give us your contract status. Where's everything at with you, if you don't mind getting into some of that with us, please?
Yeah, just like you were talking about, things move fast in the NFL. Didn't take long for me being a rookie to now being one of the older guys in the locker room.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, that snap.
It moves pretty quick. But yeah, this offseason, I was exclusive rights, so the Falcons, they just had to offer me third-year minimum, and I was theirs again. I'll be exclusive rights next year, so definitely excited to be back. Though I feel like things are really starting to build in Atlanta. This is the third year for this staff in this front office, and they've done a really amazing job just creating the roster that they want, and it's extremely competitive. So yeah, OTAs, things looked a little different. And I imagine camp, it's going to be really competitive too. So
let's talk a little bit about what the Falcons are going to bring to the table this year, at least on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, like you said, the Falcons have used their last 3 first-round picks on offensive skill guys. Kyle Pitts, tight end, Drake London, receiver, and now Bijan Robinson, a running back. So yeah, you combine that with Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier, ran for 1,000 yards last year. Traded for Jonnu Smith, who's a really explosive guy with the ball, yards after catch type of guy. So I mean, there's a lot of weapons on offense. So we really have an opportunity to move the ball around and put a lot of pressure on defenses.
So are these guys like Bijan Robinson, for example? We were talking off the air a little bit. Are a lot of these guys? I know it was just OTAs, but you can probably see pretty quick that these guys are as advertised, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything Bijan's done, he looks great. Obviously, the guys who have been there before, they've already proved themselves. But yeah, I mean, that's. Just how it goes in the NFL. Some people you get treated like a rookie, whatever. But yeah, you can usually tell right away. And yeah, the guys that they brought in this year have done an amazing job already.
Yeah, and the rubber will meet the road when games start. So yeah, we can all look good, as they used to say, look good in your underwear, running around in shorts and t-shirts or shells, helmets and shoulder pads. But when the rubber meets the road, we'll find out in the NFL season. So your biggest adjustments, and I know we've talked about this with you before, but I think it bears repeating. When you got to the NFL, what was the biggest? Let's not forget, folks, he was a defensive end at Iowa. Although he was a quarterback and played both sides of the ball at Walk-On High School and state championship game and all the great accolades you had in high school. So you can play, you're used to offense and defense. But so besides that major adjustment of, you're going to be a tight end now in the NFL and not a defensive end. But what was the biggest surprise, shock, adjustment? I don't know, what word you want to put on that. But for you, what was the biggest eye-opener for you getting to the NFL?
I mean, there's been quite a few, and then as your career progresses, things continue to kind of evolve and change from how you see things. But yeah, I mean, just realizing my first OTAs after I got signed or early into camp, just how fast the roster starts to turn over. Yeah. You come in, you get to know everyone, and you kind of think, that's the way it's going to be this year. And then at the end of OTAs, they cut 5 guys, sign new 5 guys. A week into camp, they're like, we don't like these few guys. We want to give these guys a try. And you kind of realize, not only how temporary it could be, but just how much you have to value each opportunity you get because they go fast, and there's a lot of people knocking on the door to try to get your opportunity. So, it's one thing as a young player that I realized, and I mean it's part of the game. It's always kind of in the back of your mind. As much as you try to push it out. But yeah, then the more you see how the business side affects things too. Guys that they invest money in that they don't want to. I mean, it looks bad on them. If those people don't get opportunities. So, and like you said, that goes back to if you're someone who's undrafted. I mean, you're not going to get the second and third chance that some guys are.
The intriguing thing, when you and I have talked about this in the past too, is a lot of guys will say to me, "Well, Dave, it's the speed of the game, the pace, not in college." But as you said, it's the pace of the game off the field, administratively, and well stated, about the business side of this, and you realize, oh wow, we're keeping score, but we're also exchanging dollars and cents. So It really is a job. And so, in college, you're with a guy for 4 or 5 years, although the portal and NIL and all this has changed a little bit. And we're going to get to that the next segment. But in the NFL, like you said, you're thinking, okay, cool, we're set now for this lineup. And you're like, again, that's why they say NFL, not for long. It's very temporary. So when guys know that, I'm always very curious, and I know the answer because I've talked to many athletes, but for the viewers out there, is it dog-eat-dog every day at practice? I mean, you guys get along in the locker room. I mean, you see some veterans helping younger guys, but I'm always curious to hear your story and other guys in the NFL when you talk about relationships, because eventually, if they're training you or helping you, as you're kind of smiling with me, you might be training somebody to replace you. So talk about those relationships a little bit, if you would, for us, please.
That's something that, I've found to not really be an issue. Guys
Great.
do a tremendous job.
Great.
More or less, at the end of the day, you kind of got to realize, my performance is all I can control, right? So I got to work on doing the best I can. If they want someone who's got a different build than me, who runs faster than me, what have you, that's kind of out of my control.
Yeah.
You can only work with, some of those natural abilities. You are what God gave you.
Yeah, that's right.
And it doesn't really service you at all to worry about things like that when, you do have in your control, how prepared you are, how well you can focus, how well you can execute the things that you're asked to do on the field. So, and like I said, it's something you don't forget, that things are temporary and that things move fast, but it doesn't always behoove you to keep that in the forefront of your mind. Sometimes you got to think, hey, I'm just developing. I got to keep getting better. And if something changes. That's out of my control.
One more segment left. Parker Hesse, former Hawkeye great, current Atlanta Falcon great. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeyed. Parker, former Iowa Hawkeye defensive end, and now current Atlanta Falcon starting tight end in the NFL. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeyed. We'll be back with more in just a few moments.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology, or a seed company that's writing a book on it? Mershman Seeds is a leader in technology. We're independent and family owned. Our sister company, MS Technologies, provides access to world-class traits and genetics. And our starting line seed treatment is second to none. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Parker Hesse here for the whole show. Thank him again so much for your time, Parker. And obviously want to promote the Rally for Reid football camp he's a part of with Jake Gervais and all the other former Hawkeyes going to be there at capacity. And I do want to highlight that one more time in this last segment. What a turnout it's been. Year 3, and man, it's like this thing's been going on for 20 years. The publicity, press, but also the big names you got coming in, former Hawkeyes. And we mentioned a few early. I don't want to put the hook on anybody in case they don't show, but you guys, and as you said, how well it's run administratively. But I just think the great time and the great turnout you see and volunteers, and it's at the Assumption complex, or that new sports complex at Davenport where Jake went to high school. But I smile every time I think about it with the camaraderie, but the kids, and you guys seem to have as good a time, if not more so than the kids do.
Yeah, it's really a treat. Last year we had over 500 kids show up, so yeah, it's a really fun day for everyone there. So.
Great stuff. I see the smile on your face, for you included. But so let's you and I talk about a brave new world. We're talking off the air, and I want to bring it on the air. Folks, you got to remember, and Parker said this to me, and I will lose the reaction, but your initial reaction when I said to him, how would you be working with the NIL now in the transfer portal? And you go, I don't even know any players now. I've been gone 5 years. Think about that from when you left to, you talk about a business and moving fast. The portal and now NIL. How would Parker Hesse, let's say you were a junior this year going into your senior year, what would your adjustment be? Cade McNamara's coming in as the quarterback. You went from where you were a year or two ago, and now Cade's here. The tight end room with Lachey, but then all comes in. All the changes and going on in it, the transfer comes in from Virginia at linebacker, defense that you can relate to. Let's talk about some of that. And boy, what a shot in the arm that is for a program to get players like that. But it wasn't like that back in your day. If you transferred, you had to sit out a year, especially transferring into Big Ten from like Michigan to Iowa. Yep. You had to sit forever. So how the world has changed, Parker. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really have a whole lot of firsthand experience.
That's amazing, too. 5 years has changed that much.
Yeah, because so much has changed in the last 5 years. And like I said, people who are my former teammates, they're all pretty much all out of college now, too. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great that the revenue that players bring in, not only to universities but to the surrounding areas. I mean, is getting shared with them. That's a really great thing. It'll be interesting to see with the transfer portal, how far it goes, because obviously, people who are great players or have that marketability, they're always going to be able to, go to the highest bidder or act in their best interest. But from what I understand, there's a lot of people in that enter the transfer portal and aren't don't really end up with offers or the type of attention that they expected. So it'll be interesting to see if it swings back where any certain programs or people start to value loyalty over. And I have no idea.
You've hit upon something. I want you to finish your thought. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I didn't mean to point at you and distract you. But I've got a follow-up to that you bring up a great point. I want to follow up on that. So continue, please.
Yeah, I mean, and just when you think of building a team, I mean, it's obviously you need talented players. You need people to make plays and break games open. But you also need to have, a culture in place or, working relationships in place. And you can't be swapping out every single starting position every single year if you want to be at the top of your league.
But I think you brought up a key point, that loyalty. Is there going to be a thing to loyalty? Because we've seen guys now, and I can't give you the names, but there are 4 or 5 guys in D1 that have been to 3 programs in 4 years, or 4 programs in 5 years with their COVID year. And that's a great question to wonder about loyalty, not just with the community, but your teammates. Who's coming in? What's happening? Does this guy know the program? I'm very curious on your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think definitely from building a team perspective,
trust.
There's certainly role guys. You have to have that sense of trust between a coaching staff and then from teammate to teammate, and then just having that sort of identity. And then you also look at certainly there are people that they get themselves in a better situation, and they should definitely be allowed to do that. But you talk about guys who are on their 3rd program in 4 years. What does that say about who they are as a teammate or what they contribute? Because if things were going really well, they were winning their conference, competing for national title, chances are they wouldn't be leaving. So someone who keeps hopping around looking for a different opportunity, maybe it's not always that it is the next step for them, is they're just not ready to see any opportunity through.
And this question I think about often with guys like yourself, and the response is never what I think it's going to be, but with you I know it is, because you and I have talked about this before, but I think it bears repeating. I've talked to a lot of former major league players, or my radio shows, I do a lot of baseball stuff as well, and we're having Rick Heller on, by the way, next week, folks, so get ready for that. We're doing a follow-up to the great Heller ball season of this last year. But baseball guys say, I don't begrudge these guys making multi-million-dollar a year now. Back in the 80s and 90s when I played, I only made $1.2 million. My question, I could see your answer already, and I know the answer, but I think it bears repeating. So you don't look at these kids now and go, man, I wish I would have had that 5 years ago. I busted my tail and got a scholarship and got to win Big Ten titles and play for Big Ten titles, but these kids are getting paid now. Your thoughts on that? Because I know you're not a bitterman like that, but I'm
well, just... I mean, obviously, I wish I had the opportunity to also,
of course,
cash in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's definitely something that is long overdue. I mean, college athletics is, not just a huge part of the economy across the country and so many college towns, but I mean, just part of like our culture. It's kind of how we identify, where we are. So it's, it's about time that, people who keep that system going are, get to cash in on it. But yeah, obviously I wish we
you're like, wait a second,
it,
Dave, I'm not so okay with it.
Started it another 5 years earlier or something. But
do you ever foresee to your exact point, and we've talked about that about football a lot, and I'm really glad you brought that up. And closing up here, do you see a cap ever being put on this? Because eventually, I'll just say it, the Alabamas of the world, and I don't want to make fans upset, but, Iowa lost a player, and that was a certain school that got one of the players. But it comes down to, as they always say, money talks, and what walks. And so my question to you would be, do you foresee a cap coming on? At some point, is there a cap, or is it just going to be the wild, wild west from here on out in college sports, especially in football?
I mean, I think it'll just be interesting to see. I mean, because the schools that can outspend and their football program alone is profitable, they're not going to agree to any cap put in place by the NCAA.
Yeah.
So they're going to choose to probably break away and try to make a league of their own. Now, would they put their own cap with the schools that profit off football? Try to put their own cap? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, right now it is kind of the wild, wild west, and you think within the next 5 years there's going to be some sort of forces that bring a little more stability to it.
You'd hope, yeah. Parker, thank you so much. Great seeing you.
Appreciate it, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Truly my pleasure. You're welcome. So for Parker Hesse, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. Thanks also to you, the viewers, and my production partner, Michael Merrick. So for Hawkeye, that's all from us. Thanks to all of you. And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guests and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.